welcome back to my channel. In today's video, first of all, in the first video, I would like to talk to you about something that I've been reading about lately, and in my second video, I want to just share with you a recipe that I've tried that I've enjoyed making recently. So, in my first video, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Finland and the concept of Sisu. Now, I'm interested in Scandinavia. It's something that I've kind of got quite interested in lately. Just the whole philosophy, the whole culture of Scandinavia, I just find really appealing. And if I wasn't born in the UK, if I hadn't grown up in the UK, the next place I wish I'd grown up in would have been Scandinavia. I actually really like their culture. I've never been to Scandinavia. Maybe in the future I will go there, but I've been reading about it and I just find it really appealing. So one book I've been reading lately, unfortunately I haven't got it here to show you because it was a library book, so I've returned it to the library now. But I'll put the link to the book below. The title of the book was Finding Sisu, In Search of Courage, Strength and Happiness, the Finnish Way, by Katja Pansar. So I got this book out of the library just because I am interested in sort of the Scandinavian culture and the sort of philosophy. And it's pronounced Sisu. I have to remember the correct way of pronouncing it because it's not phonetic. It's spelled S-I-S-U, but it's actually pronounced Sisu. Which roughly translates as courage, fortitude, and not giving up in the face of a challenge. So I want to talk a little bit about what I learned. Now, before I get underway and just and explain more about what Sisu is, it appears that Finland is a really great place to live. In 2016, Finland was named the most progressive country in the world. On the Social Progress Index, all of the Nordic countries were in the top 10, but Finland was number 1. Social progress refers to, I quote, the capacity of a society to meet the basic human needs of its citizens, establish the building blocks that allow citizens and communities to enhance and sustain the quality of their lives, and create conditions for all individuals to reach their full potential. Now, I'm pretty certain that the UK, where I live, currently does not meet this criterion, considering all the cuts to vital services that have been going on recently by the austerity-obsessed Tory government that we currently have in power. Really just care about cutting back vital public services and, essentially not really. Well, it's just anti-humanism, isn't it? Because the people who suffer the most are people who who suffer the most as a consequence of this are obviously those who don't have money or a lot of money. But I mean, obviously, ultimately, everyone loses out. Everyone does. I would say that a happy, healthy society is one that minimises inequalities as much as possible, aims for a society where there's minimal income disparities and fully funded public services that anyone can access without having to pay for, without having to be services that are essentially funded by central taxation, which should basically be about those who have most money being taxed the most, which is fair and helps redistribute resources. Now, this is what they do historically in the Scandinavian countries. I mean, I think it is changing now because, there has been a sort of growth in kind of quite extreme sort of right-wing politics in that area, unfortunately. So this may well be changing, but historically, at least, the Scandinavian model did value high taxes, and yet far from it being the case that people begrudge paying their taxes, in Scandinavia, actually, this is people see this as an important way of building that fair society, and they're actually happy. It has been argued they're happy not in spite of the high taxation, but because of it, because everyone knows why they're paying into this pot, why they're kind of contributing in this way, because it benefits everyone. And obviously it makes sense that those who have the most money pay the most, so it's fair. And those who have the least money pay the least. But everyone benefits, everyone's in it together. There's a sense that everyone's in it together. And that's this sort of collective mindset. In Scandinavia, everyone, is invested in building these good, solid public services. And that, arguably, is why they always come top on the happiness index, and the most sort of socially progressive countries are in that Scandinavian sort of peninsula. So anyway, a little bit of going off a bit of a tangent there, but that's the sort of philosophy, and I guess that's part of the reason why I'm drawn to the Scandinavian countries, just because, I don't know, I like that sort of mindset, I guess. But yes, to get back to the main task of the video now, to discuss Sisu. So Sisu is said to be a form of embodied cognition, whereby the body influences the mind. The word Sisu derives from Sisus, which refers to the interior or inside of a thing. So it literally means having guts. Interestingly, the gut produces about 80% of the serotonin in our entire system, and this affects brain function. This explains, in part, why a healthy diet can help protect our brain health, which affects our level of Sisu, or resilience, because, there is that saying, isn't there, you can't go to war on an empty stomach. The very first thing a soldier needs is to be well fed, to have that full stomach. But that success or failure in I'm just using warfare as an analogy, but success or failure in warfare ultimately depends on that material base, how well fed the person is, and that can be then generalised out to the whole of existence. Really, we can only function insofar as the degree of our functioning is very much dependent on what we feed our bodies, on our physical health. So physical health, from this perspective, comes first, and we've got to attend to what we put into our bodies. It's like a fuel. If you've put good fuel into your body, you're obviously going to function a lot better. And I do put a lot of emphasis in the Nordic countries in particular. I mean, obviously this is a very gross generalisation, but the culture in general does put this emphasis on looking after the physical body quite a lot. So they're very into like nature and exercise and that sort of thing. Now, one interesting way to boost Sisu is to take a 1-minute dip in very cold water. This is very popular in the Scandinavian countries. The Finns in particular love cold water swimming, but I do think I'm going to give that one a miss. That's not quite for me. A cold water shower is the next best thing. It's great for the immune system and blood circulation and helps produce endorphins, our happy hormones. This form of treatment is called cryotherapy, and the Finns swear by it. At the other extreme, the Finns love taking a sauna, and sauna is one of the few Finnish words in the English dictionary, which is an interesting fact. Finns on average eat a generally good diet with lots of rye bread and natural yoghurt or sour milk products and berries, all great for the gut. Now, one thing I love about the Finns is their dislike of small talk. They generally respect other people's space, and they don't smile much on the outside, but may well be smiling a lot on the inside. The culture values depth over superficiality, so maybe Finland is a relatively autism-friendly culture. Now, obviously I am generalising, and this is a very gross stereotype, so I will say that outright, I am stereotyping, I am generalising. But I do think that some cultures are more autism-friendly than others, and when I was reading this book about the general dislike in the Scandinavian sort of culture for small talk, and I was thinking, this could be a relatively autism-friendly place to live, say, compared to countries that compared to places. I mean, obviously Scandinavia is, covers many different countries that are all different, but all kind of, in a sense, yes, they are all different, but they also kind of are kind of connected by a very broad kind of sort of philosophical way of being. That maybe is a bit different to the sort of more American model that Britain tends to follow, which is in a way a lot more extroverted and more superficial in a way, and maybe therefore less autism friendly. So yes, an interesting thought to ponder, I was thinking. In Finland also, feeling melancholy or sad is socially acceptable, and there is less pressure to appear constantly happy. Arguably, this means that true happiness is more likely to flourish in this culture than elsewhere. Finland is also the most literate nation, which is great for a bookworm for me, like me. I guess they really do value literature and learning. They have one of the biggest, lost the word, what am I saying? What I'm saying is they really put a lot of emphasis on literature, on reading. The vast majority of Finnish people use the public library service more than in many other places. And one form of Sisu, interestingly, is reading Sisu. And this involves challenging a mind with new ideas and practicing endurance, not giving up. So that was interesting because I love reading, I'm a bookworm, but reading can also be quite stressful for me because because of those issues, I guess my autism does interfere sometimes with it. Like, I can struggle to stay focused, I can struggle to concentrate at times because the world is very distracting. Noise, all that stimuli going on can be quite distracting, so it's quite hard work, even though I love it at the same time. But challenging myself to carry on regardless is a form of reading Sisu, so that was interesting. Practicing endurance. So I realise I've only touched briefly on the concept of Sisu in this video, but I will come back to it in my next week's video because there's some other areas I would like to touch on that I read in this book, which I'd like to talk about next week. So thank you for watching. So I'm now going to move on to video number 2 now. So moving on to video number 2.